You ever wondered why we need to flip into flower in the first place? If a cannabis plant is a female and it naturally flowers in nature, why doesn't it flower when you just put it under a grow light with any time schedule you want, as much light as you want, 24 hours? Why won't it flower? Why do we need to flip to flower? Why do we need to restrict the light to make it happen? I'm going to try to answer that question today with a little bit of biology knowledge. So let's get into it real quick. So a cannabis plant is an annual plant, which means it will grow an entire growing season and then it will die at the end of the growing season. And depending on where you live, that can either be October or it can be September when you need to cut it early, or it just simply gets ready quickly. It can be for a lot of reasons, but when you grow it outside, the light naturally switches its schedule, automatically restricts the amount of light that's going into the plant, and that's kind of how this plant has adapted in nature to respond to the restricting of light, letting it know that it's going to pollinate, and then it is going to grow seeds, and then it is going to die extremely soon. It's normally a 2-month process. So it can be easy to think about how we can come to the conclusion of how it is adapted through time. But why is that important? Female cannabis plants, which we get the beloved bud from, have a female hormone because they are female and male plants. There are female and male separate. You'll either get a female plant, you'll get a male plant, or sometimes you can have hermaphroditic plants, depending on a lot of factors. But today we're going to focus on female plants since we're going to be focusing on the flowering and the bud production and female hormones, which is the main thing we're going to talk about, is female hormones inside of the cannabis plant and how it affects the cannabis plant throughout its life, starting with the veg stage. Now, when a cannabis plant is going through the veg stage, you will begin to see the presence of the female hormone on the external part of the body approximately halfway through a veg cycle that I would normally use. Normally, I would go through a 2-month veg cycle and then a 2-month flower cycle, roughly. It can give or take a couple weeks for the flowering cycle, but normally I would go with an 8-week veg cycle. I find that gives a good foundation for a plant that is going to yield a decent amount. It might change in the future. I might plan on vegging longer since I'm going to try to fill a grow tent with a single plant or 2 plants at the same time, but that's irrelevant for what we're talking about. So when you start to see the female hormone in the veg stage, it's going to make its appearance as a little tiny white pistil in the conjunction of a node. Now that little white hair is extremely important, and you will start to see them pop up all over your plant, and they will become extremely obvious. They can be super obvious and they can be larger with some plants than others, but generally, once your plant is sexually mature, you will definitely see that hormone appearing. And this means it would be prime time for flipping it into the flower stage. It's letting you know it's at a good state. It has established its genetics. It has grown to a point where it is mature enough to go into the next stage of life, which would be the flowering stage. And what happens when we go into the flowering stage is when we restrict the light, what we're actually doing is letting the female hormone have more time during the nighttime to come out and be activated and be multiplied. And what happens then is it goes into the flower stage. So when we restrict the light, unless you're growing autos, that's when it's going to flip into the flower stage. And it is not 12 hours, but it is 12 hours or lower. So if you had a 6-hour flowering light, if you had a 7-hour flowering light, you will also start to see bud production. Now, would that have any benefit? I don't think so. And the reason it wouldn't have much benefit to you as a grower and a presumed cannabis user, is that when the light is turned on, it is perspirating, it is going through photosynthesis, and it is creating a lot of the things that we growers desire, like trichomes and terpenes are the two key things that we need during the day. But at the same time, we need that female hormone to accelerate its presence and then have its nighttime cycle. So the way we remedied this is just having a 12-hour light, making sure we get as much perspiration as we possibly can, making sure we get as much photosynthesis as we possibly can, at the same time as balancing it with the female hormone that gets activated at night. That is actually creating the bud production, the flowering process. I hope this video helped you. If it did, please leave a like down below. It really helps boost it in the algorithm. Let me know your comments down below if you have any questions, comments, and concerns. I know this video was kind of long. We're pulling on 6.5 minutes. I'm going to have to edit it down, but that's not important to you guys. I think that's about it. See ya.